All right, it'll take a second to see if it goes live, and then we will get into it as soon as I could see. And it's actually broadcasting, so it usually takes about 20 or 30 seconds of delay time before it will broadcast. And there we go. What's up, ladies and gentlemen of the YouTube world? This is Chris, and this is my channel, Bar 911-970. Thank you for taking the time, whenever you are watching this, to hear what I have to say. I think this is technically the first live chat I've ever done on my own. I've been on a couple of live chats, but it's been a long time, and I figured I haven't made a video in about a week or so. So I figured I'd do something to surprise my subscribers and talk a little bit about current events, things like that. And already you can see we have some viewers, so thank you for wanting to hear what I have to say. Now, I don't know how many live chats you may or may not have seen, but this one will be a little different. You'll notice there won't be the scrolling chat. The reason being is I find with the scrolling chat, they can go by so quickly you never get to see any of the questions or something that people want to have you pay attention to. So what I have is it's what's called a question and answer. So you can actually ask questions, and provided I know the answer to it, and I'll try my best, you can actually ask questions, and it will be real time, and it will show up on the right-hand side of my screen, so this way I can actually see it without having to scroll all the time and try and look on another window for it. And what you can also do is if you see somebody ask a question, you can actually thumb it up. So if you see a question that you really think somebody should be answering, you could put that on and thumb it up, and it'll be higher up in the list. So the way you do that is, if you look on the bottom left-hand part of your screen, because I'm assuming most of you are watching this on YouTube, you'll see where it says, be a part of the conversation, click here. Well, if you click on that, you'll all of a sudden have another window open up. You'll see on the top right-hand corner what looks to be an icon that looks kind of like a white Rubik's Cube. If you click on that, you'll see a button that says Q&A. So then it'll open up a little pop-up window to the right. You can ask any question you want. And again, if somebody in the audience sees the question and they think it's a good question and want it shot up, well, you can thumb it up. So with that being said, I want to talk about what I've been seeing lately. First of all, talking about the gold and silver, I still collect them, still believe in all the things that I talked about years ago. I find it for protection for the future. Now, obviously, that's not going to be for everybody. And the way you saw it dip for the past 2 or 3 years, it can be very frustrating. So I can understand where people get bored of it, tired of it, and things like that. You can even see on my videos for a while, I stopped talking about it because you can only say the same thing so many times. But we're starting to see some interesting moves with the precious metals at this point. We're seeing highs we haven't seen in a while. So that shows that there is interest. And anytime there is some kind of event, things can change in an instant. So that's one of the things that I want to recommend to people to pay attention to is we tend to take for granted when things are going well. I mean, think of that just in your regular life where everything's fine. You can have days, weeks, months, or years where everything is just, you visit your family on the holidays, you go to work every day, you kiss your spouse goodbye, and then all of a sudden your world turns upside down in an instant. And it doesn't always have to be a life-changing event, but it's something as simple as a storm, a power outage. You could run out of gas in the middle of nowhere and your battery and your cell phone is dead. There's always situations that could come up. And if you're not prepared for them, then you could be in a position that you don't want to be in. And when it happens in an instant, you're not going to be prepared. So one of the biggest things I've always talked about on this channel is preparing for situations that may occur when it comes to things like your currency. Because if you look throughout history, you know that currencies eventually are doomed to fail because they are run by people who eventually allow greed to overcome themselves to the point where it destroys itself and collapses from the inside. So if and when these things happen, you don't want to be one of the people playing hot potato and have the potato in your hand. You want it to be passed along. Now, one of the big things I've always said is I'm not expecting anything to happen based on fear, because if you do it based on fear, you're doing it for the wrong reasons. I mean, like I've said before, if you have insurance for your car, you're not sitting there every day saying, oh my God, I got insurance on my car. What if I get into an accident? I mean, you're going to get to the point you drive yourself crazy and you won't want to even drive your car anymore. It's there for protection. So I want to see, I got the first question. So you could make statements, you could make questions, whatever you want, and I will give shout outs to anybody that does it. So if you want to, please do. This is going to be random. This is something that I just decided to do last second, so this is not anything prepared. And you guys know me, if you've been watching me for a while, I just pick a topic and I just go with it. So 32 Common Sense Guy writes, if Trump hires Ron Paul as Fed chairman, could that turn things, in other words, economy, value of money, etc., around? Well, first of all, Trump has to be elected because we know that the elections are not really what they seem. Has Ron Paul said he would like to be Fed chairman? Because Fed has nothing to do with the government. So even if Trump, for some reason, becomes president, he has no say in who's in charge of the Fed, because technically the Fed is in charge of the U.S. government and anybody who borrows money from them. So the Fed is a private corporation. So even if Trump wanted that, it just wouldn't happen. But people have to understand that, I've said this in many videos, that kings run countries, presidents run corporations. So that's why it doesn't matter who's going to be president. It's always going to be the same. I mean, look at, for example, when Obama came into presidency. How many millions of people were crying in the streets and cheering that it's time for change? And even back then, before I was alerted to the things that I know now, I was one of the people that I rooted for him. I'm like, wow, we finally have an African-American president. Maybe we are becoming more diverse. Maybe we are growing as a society. And we see more and more now, we've become more and more socialist and fascist than we are a free republic, because people seem to forget that we actually did not start out as a democracy. We started out as a republic. That's why it says, and to the republic for which it stands. It doesn't say to the democracy. But it's all run by places like the Fed. That's part of it. The money is what controls. Because, for example, if you're a politician, if you've ever heard the expression greasing the palms of a politician, what they're telling you is if you want a law passed or a law never to see the light of day, you hand them a bunch of fiat currency and they'll change a law, prohibit a law, whatever. So the illusion is, even I see, like when it comes to Donald Trump, and thank you for that question, I appreciate it. When it comes to Donald Trump, I can see why people like him. Now, me knowing the system, it doesn't matter who's picked to be president, because it is a selection, not an election. But people, I can see how they gravitate to him because he's different. He is somebody that is not the typical politician that reads off of cue cards, who's very timid. He does stand out. So I can see where people can be attracted to that. But make no mistake, even if somehow he became president, there are going to be people in backdoor rooms that are basically going to say, you're going to do what we tell you, and if you do, you'll still be alive. I mean, look what happened to JFK. He was one of the last presidents that tried to do something to change this country. I've said it before in several videos. If you look at executive order, and if you have a pen, if you don't know about this, please check it. Or you could Google it right now. It's executive order 11110. And if you look that up, you'll see John F. Kennedy was trying to get this country to make its own money. Now, we borrow money from a Federal Reserve, which is a private-owned bank. We have to pay back interest. Well, they don't. They get the fruits of it, but we have to pay it back. JFK, with Executive Order 11110, was going to have our country make its own money. So we didn't have to borrow it from a Federal Reserve, a foreign-owned bank, which means the U.S. taxpayer would not have to pay the amount of taxes that we do. Taxes is a nice word for theft. And he got murdered for that. That's not the only reason why, but it was one of them. That's why if you ever look at one of your dollars, if you have a dollar near you, $5, $10, doesn't matter, it will say on it, Federal Reserve note. It's property of the Federal Reserve. It's a note. If you look at an old dollar from, let's say, 1956, it will say silver certificate. And you could exchange that in return for the bearer of whatever amount in silver. You can't go to the bank and say, I'd like to get silver for this, because the dollar is backed by nothing. And that's why it's stamped Federal Reserve. But if you look at a quarter, a nickel, a dime, a penny, they don't say Federal Reserve on them. They say U.S. Mint. Why? Because they're made here in this country. Big difference. The problem is the coins used to be made, first of all, they used to be made in gold. Then they got them down to silver because it is a cheaper metal. It devalues the value of that currency. Then it got to the point they started adding copper. And now look at the coins today. And if you see in Canada, I don't think they got to wood yet, but I know they have some plastic currency. And they're getting even less, because even our pennies now, they don't have the copper in them they do anymore. It's mostly zinc. So what they do is the penny from the 1800s pretty much looks almost exactly the same as the penny today. I mean, if you take the 1909 Lincoln penny, there is no difference between the 1909 Lincoln penny to the penny today, except for the fact that it has less copper in it, which means it's cheaper to make, less value. The same thing with a dime, a U.S. dime from like 1956, 1960, 1964 had 90% silver in it. A dime today has mostly zinc. It's a cheaper metal. It reduces its value, but the way they trick you is that it looks the same. They just change a couple of words, and you just go on thinking, oh, it's the same thing you used to have. You just ignore those little bits and pieces that they change. So it's just being aware of your surroundings. And I think there's so many different things now to distract you that most people don't get the chance to pay attention to everything. It's all that divide and conquer. So it's just something that you have to be aware of. And the more you pay attention, the more you notice things that have always been right in front of you. So Charles Wilson asked the question. And again, if you're new to this is just something I decided to do spur of the moment. This wasn't anything planned, so I'm not expecting 5,000 views or anything like that. So I got about 21 viewers right now. I welcome you. And if you want to ask questions, I'll do my best to answer them. The way you do it is, if you're just joining in now, if you look on the bottom left-hand corner of your screen, you're going to see where it says be a part of the conversation. Click here. Now, if you click on that, another window is going to open. Then you look towards the top right hand of the corner of the window. It'll look like a white Rubik's Cube. You click on that icon and you'll see a Q&A button. If you press that, all of a sudden the window will open up on the right hand side. You can ask whatever question. And also, if people see a good question and they want it thumbed up, it will go higher in the screen. So right now, Charles Wilson writes, it's not just the U.S. that will be affected with this crash. I thoroughly agree. It's the whole world. These problems will not go away until the banksters and elites go away. What is the answer? Okay. Very good question, and I thoroughly agree. And this is why I find it funny, because I have people that watch this channel from all over the world, and I appreciate that. It's very humbling to know that hundreds of different countries around the world, there are people that listen to what I have to say. That's just amazing to me. But I have seen on several videos, I'm not just talking my own, because I watch plenty of people's videos. I try and learn what I can. Where especially people that don't live in the United States corporation, all of a sudden everything went blank. Yeah, how interesting.